It is now in order to consider Amendment Number 3, printed in Part C of House Report 118656. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Texas seek recognition?
Mr. Chair, I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment Number 3, printed in Part C of House Report Number 118-656, offered by Ms. Crockett of Texas.
Pursuant to House Resolution 1430, the gentlewoman from Texas, Ms. Crockett, and a member opposed, each will control 5 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Texas.
Thank you. My amendment today seeks to protect the bedrock of our democracy, free and fair elections, from attacks by foreign actors. And while I have great concerns about the underlying bill today, given its overly broad language and its impact for universities in need of DHS funding, whether it be for disaster relief or campus hardening or threat protection, the issue of election interference is one that cannot be ignored. We know that our democratic processes are under attack by foreign countries. Last week, the Department of Justice issued indictments outlining efforts from the Russian government to influence the 2024 presidential election by funding and promoting divisive, inflammatory rhetoric and disinformation campaigns in the media and on online platforms. These efforts have been surprisingly effective in infiltrating the platforms of far-right influencers, conservative media, and even some of my fellow lawmakers who have repeated some of this Russian propaganda right here on the House floor. But the concerns about the PRC doing the same are not anew. Last December, the National Intelligence Council detailed how, quote, the intelligence community assessed that China tacitly approved efforts to influence a handful of midterm elections involving members of both U.S. political parties. And just last Friday, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence issued a report titled 60 Days Until Election 2024, which stated, quote, the intelligence community is aware of the People's Republic of China's attempts to influence U.S. down-ballot races by focusing on candidates it views as particularly threatening to core PRC security interests. Make no mistake, preventing such influence and interference in our democratic processes is vital to maintaining our national security and the international security in the Indo-Pacific region. It also preserves the United States' free and fair elections, thereby legitimizing our electoral process and reinforcing the principles of democracy. This is not the first time Congressional Republicans put a bill on the floor defining a foreign entity of concern or foreign adversary, and it will not be the last. And strangely enough, I'm starting to see a pattern. Attempts at election interference through mis- and disinformation is a problem. And with that being said, I am asking for support of my amendment. And with that, I will yield to the ranking member.
Does the gentlelady yield or reserve?
I will reserve.
The gentlelady reserve. For what purpose does the gentleman from Mississippi seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I would like to be recognized. I rise in opposition, though I am not opposed to the amendment.
So ordered. The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, as we look to the basis of the amendment, we see that this amendment deals with election interference, something that I believe both parties share concerns about. We know that in less than 60 days, people from across this great land, they will go to the polls and they will select our next president. They will determine which party controls the majority here in this chamber, as well as which party controls the majority in the United States Senate. I have great concerns that China and our other adversaries across the globe will use this opportunity to try to sow dissent among the American public, that they will try to pit Americans versus Americans by their disinformation platform that they will be pushing across traditional and across more than not social media. I believe that this is why it is so important that we do everything within our power to protect our election integrity. whether it be to stop the influence of China, Russia, Iran, any of our adversaries, but also to do what we can to protect our election by assuring that only United States citizens vote in our election. We know that many of our municipalities, some of our states have opened up elections both on a state and many times municipal levels to allowing non-United States citizens to vote in those elections. That's why I support the effort of Speaker Johnson to pass the SAFE Act, to attach the SAFE Act to a continuing resolution to make sure that those individuals, when they register, that they show proof of citizenship. So with that, Mr. Speaker, I support the basis of this amendment. I support election integrity. I support us doing all that we can to assure that those who are voting actually should be allowed to vote. But I support the basis of this amendment, which stands for the principle that our foreign adversaries, particularly those such as, in this case, China, that they be prevented from interfering in our elections. And so with that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
Does the gentleman yield, or does the gentleman reserve?
Gentleman yields.
Gentleman yields back. The gentlelady from Texas is recognized.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate the remarks of the gentleman. I have had an opportunity to travel to various portions of Asia since I've been here. In fact, I don't think that there's any place that I've traveled to more. And I must say that as I have consistently traveled the world, and a lot of times with a number of my Republican colleagues, the one thing that I can say has been very bipartisan all term long has been our concerns about the rising threat of the PRC. And so I appreciate your remarks. I appreciate standing together, and that is standing against anyone that is a threat to our elections, as they are what makes America truly great. So thank you so much, and with that, I will yield.
The gentlelady yields. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentlewoman from Texas. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to.